my colleague at NFL Network, my former colleague about a decade and a half ago at 1500 ESPN Radio in Minneapolis, Jamie Erdahl. Hey. Your studio debut.
When you started to say 1500, I thought you were going to say you've known me. You've known me since I was 15 years old. Did you know that?
Since you were 15? Well, yeah. Don't say uh-oh.
In a professional manner. That's how driven I've been since the age of 15.
Because you were KFAN at 15?
I was KFAN, and I was a high school student answering phones for Sports Talk Radio.
Awesome. Yes.
And Tom would come through the show for like the Chad Hartman show and whatnot.
Right.
And
that is like 2004-ish?
Yes. Yeah.
And then we were back together in 2010 at 1500 ESPN.
Yep. And now here we are in the Rich Eisen Show on a sponsored desk.
Who would have thought? Yeah, exactly. From our friends at Granger. No one would have thought. My desk at 1500 ESPN in that closet was definitely not sponsored.
No.
In fact, it had pictures of other people's children on it, and I think you know whose children those were.
Yes, I do.
You kids have come a long way.
All right, so big news this week.
Yes.
The internet has been ablaze, I'd say, for 3-4 months about Good Morning Football, the future of the popular show on the network, a Sports Emmy winning show.
Yeah.
All right, so you're back July 29th.
We are back.
It's big news.
Yes,
the show's gonna look a little bit different. It's gonna be on multiple platforms. We'll get into all this good stuff.
Okay.
But let's start, Joe, with this. What the hell happened, Jamie? How did we get here? What's going on?
I just want to say a lot of those questions that were on the internet probably were from like ghost accounts by me. Like I had questions too. I think we all, that was a challenging couple of months. Let's start the story this way. In March 8th, I think we all found out that this was happening to Good Morning Football, that we were leaving New York and the show was moving to Los Angeles. I was like 36 weeks pregnant. So I had just come off the combine in Indianapolis. I was just lucky to not give birth at the combine. And I come back and we're like, great, we're going to rock through free agency. Okay. I got some vacation booked, maternity leave. It's going to be great. We pop up with our bosses one day in early March and they give us this news. And I was so surprised. You hear rumblings of just the nature of the industry and changes. And, there is a studio at NFL Films in South Jersey and Manhattan is very expensive. And you listen to things, but mostly you just want to do the job. This was so not a direction, literally, west that I thought it could ever go. I can only speak for myself that I just love my chair and the show so much and the position the show has within the NFL that I was going to do anything to stay a part of it. And that meant committing to the move before I had my third daughter at March 30th. And my entire maternity leave has been spent moving my family from New Jersey to Los Angeles. We got here in the middle of June and we're going to start rehearsing next week and we've got new teammates but it's been really hard. It's been a challenge because the show is so team-based, but these were all really personal decisions to make, I think, for everyone involved in the show. And so I'm somebody who likes to talk things through, and so I'm constantly just like, oh, how are the guys? What's everybody going to do? And it affected a lot of people behind the scenes, which was hard to see happen. But the health and the future of the show was kind of at risk, and you wanted to move forward together and you wanted it to stay on the air. So people made decisions that were important and impactful. And lo and behold, here we are going to come on the air from Englewood on July 29th and on Roku for a couple of the hours of the day. And
that's right. So that's one of the new things here. So it's Good Morning Football, which traditionally had been a 7 to 10 Eastern time show, 4 to 7 Pacific show. Now going to be Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. on NFL Network. So it starts 1 hour later. That's 5 a.m. Pacific time. We'll get to that momentarily here. Also, a new extension series, GMFB Overtime, premieres July 29th, streams Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to noon on the Roku channel, which is where we are. So thanks, everybody, for watching Roku. You'll be seeing a lot more of Jamie Erdahl moving forward. So now, a 4-hour show. How is the overtime version of this going to differ from the traditional Good Morning Football?
I think it will have the same avenues, but in terms of football, I think the big thing is it will be on Roku. It will also be nationally syndicated from that 10 to 12 Eastern spot. So the big thing is we want to speak to the broader audience. I think then, certain fans are going to go to NFL Network to hear certain just maybe a more intensified version of our football takes and our conversations and the news. Then you flip over to Roku, and to be syndicated, you want to welcome a broader conversation at times, I think. So it's still going to be, it's the first ever sports talk show put into national syndication, which is a really cool flex to be a part of. But you want it to have almost start to drip into the talk show feel, if you will, when it's on Roku and in syndication. And my new teammate Akbar, who is like classically trained now in the talk show world, that I'm so excited to sit next to him because Jason McCourty decided not to make the move with the show.
Right.
So Akbar is going to be next to me every day, and I'm just so excited to learn from him and work with him. So I think it's going to almost be a little broader in those second 2 hours where you're going to see on Roku and then in syndication.
So Peter Schrager, Kyle Brandt, obviously two of the OGs on Good Morning Football.
Yes.
They're going to stay based with their families in New York.
Yeah, and you'll see them out here. I mean, we can't do angry runs all the time from like a little closet in the East Coast. Like, you got to get Kyle.
So Kyle will have to angry run himself from coast to coast a handful of times throughout the course of the season. How does that impact the dynamic, though? Because I know that, listen, social media is a terrible judge of anything, but all the complaints that are registered. Listen, I got all the complaints registered about myself. You see them about why are we screwing up the best show on it? It is different. You're going to have a lot of the time those two in New York, maybe in a studio together, maybe on home cam sometimes, however that ends up shaking out. But they're not sitting. Like, the beauty of the show for a long time was the four people sitting around the breakfast table. It was this, being in person. It's not the same. We did those shows in 2020. I filled in on a lot of them, and doing it in the 4-box on Zoom cameras because we weren't allowed to leave the house, not as fun as sitting around the breakfast table. How will the dynamic change, and how do you overcome the inherent kind of lack of human contact that's there?
The short answer is I just don't know how it's going to change yet. I don't know the answer to that question. I'm trying to be an optimist about it. What I am optimistic about is that I know Peter and Kyle very well. I've just now done 20 months worth of shows with them 5 days a week through 2 intense football seasons. I've seen the ins and outs, how they both operate. So if anyone was going to be remote and away from me physically, it can be those two, because I can still read them well enough to hopefully push them places and get them to go to their entertaining capacities. Not knowing Akbar, that's better that he's next to me every day, because now I'm like, I just met him. I just saw him in the flesh last night for the first time. We met up in the town that we happen to both live in.
Did he do any ninja stuff with you?
He
or
did it like
totally
right at the
cool
right, exactly.
Football?
No, what an impressive human. Like, that's a whole other segment of television. But I'm glad that he's with me and we can grow together the way Jason McCourty and I did when we started. And then I'm okay with those guys making the decision that they did, because it was important for them to stay where they were in the capacity that their family life would have been affected. And I know that we'll see them. They'll keep the show alive. I mean, those two, in my opinion, are the editorial North Star of GMFB, Peter Schrager and Kyle Brandt. Like, the show can't do much, I think, without their engine at times.
So what was your first year at CBS? What was your first year on television in general? 2012, 13-ish, somewhere in there? My
first year on television in a real official capacity was in 2012 in Boston. It was like my first big TV job at Nesson. I was with the Red Sox and the Bruins. And then at CBS, the fall of 14, was on Mountain West football, NCAA tournament, and then the fall of 15 was my first sideline in the NFL.
Which was a rather rapid rise from running errands for 2 curmudgeon hosts on a local radio station and tracking down people to give various awards to.
Do you guys know the history of this?
I don't.
So when Tom Pelissero...
Jamie was, if you think like what the cliche definition of what people think a radio intern does, that was Jamie. Yeah. That was how Jamie was used at that station.
Tom you hosted the show, right?
I was hosting
you
too.
and Royce.
Phil Mackey and I.
Phil Mackey, yes, and then
correct.
Royce was on.
Right, there was a lot of different lineup changes through those years, right?
So they had this bit, we'll call it that, sports person of the day. And why it was an everyday capacity, it made my job harder. They would just pick rando people that were, making news that day, and they wanted to send certificates out to the sports person of the day.
Physical certificates.
To the person.
And this was the summer of a World Cup. And if you remember, that was the onslaught of the vuvuzelas.
Oh. The constant buzz.
So this guy gives the sports person of the day, who's like the inventor of the vuvuzela, and I have to track down who this person is, where they're
Wasn't
from.
Me, but yes.
Whatever. You were involved. You probably egged it on.
I was around.
So my job was I was like sending certificates out, stamping them, licking the envelopes as a college intern on the sports talk radio station, answering phones. You know, was it Joe from Florida? He's going in on the Falcons just now. I'm just thinking about sports talk radio. Sorry. But yeah, and so now come full circle. Tom fills in on GMFB. What was it last year? And you gave me a sports.
That's true. I did.
Sports person of the day
which
certificate.
I hope you have somewhere in a safe place amidst the move.
You really did that? You didn't
really did that.
say that you did it?
I really did it.
No, I watched it happen. It was literally coffee runs for the host, printing things, and sending out the sports person of the day. And then, so like 4 years after this, I turn on CBS and she's like interviewing Nick Saban. And I was like, wow, that was a pretty rapid rise. But here's where I was going with that is the past 4 months. I know that you did. There were some shows during the draft and whatnot, but this has to be one of the longest stretches you've ever not been on TV. And I imagine you have a lot of takes kind of brewing. You've just been storing them up. I don't want to take away from the return of Good Morning Football, July 29th on NFL Network and streaming on the Roku channel. But what do you want to unleash on us today, Jamie? What's been eating that away at you for 3-4 months here?
Well, in my sleepless nights with a newborn, if you will, there's been a lot of, as you say, reading and reacting, probably in a healthy manner, because I get to tell my 3-month-old things that I probably wouldn't say on TV, about, trades that were made or contracts that were signed or quarterbacks that moved on. So let's just say I am actually really deep into, we take prediction week very seriously on GMFB, and I think I really think I'm gonna make some splashes this year with my prediction week. Ooh. I just, you guys are talking about the NFC East, and then, the Kirk Cousins thing still just irks me, how that happened, and the Falcons and then their draft. I'm kind of on I'm losing my words. It's so complex in my brain right now, but it has just been sleepless nights thinking about this. But prediction week with the division winners, I think I'm really going to move some teams around.
When's prediction week?
It is the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of the
regular
first week
season.
Of the season.
Which is 49 days, as we've been talking about, to kickoff of the regular season.
Give us a taste, though. Kind of like pilot one of the hottest division winners you're thinking about.
Or the hottest take you got in general. Come on, lay something on us here.
Let me tell you something. My first season on GMFB, I made a grave error, as the Kansas City Chiefs fans would tell you, and I did not make them division winners.
Right.
I didn't even have them going.
Same thing. You have the Raiders that year. Did you buy in on the Raiders?
R.I.P.
That's what Is that what Rich did?
That's what Rich did. And he's still hearing about it.
Still hearing about it.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying I'm going to go with the Raiders, but all of a sudden, there's this coach who's living in the same town as me, and my husband went to Michigan, and it's like, what is this team going to do in Los Angeles?
Oh boy.
So
don't do it.
You're going to do it again.
Jamie, you just moved out here.
I'm just thinking about I'm just trying it on for size. You just said I had 39 days.
There's also definitely some personal part of this. If she's walking around in whatever beach town she happens to be in and running into Chargers fans, and they're like, you're picking the Chiefs? Like, you gotta protect number one here.
Hold on. There are Chargers fans?
That's what, and if they are, I think they're actually nicer than Chiefs fans.
Yeah. They're going to have quite the season ahead. They're the biggest story in sports.
Who is?
Jim Harbaugh?
The Chargers story in sports?
They'll be one of the biggest stories in all sports.
That's a hot take.
The Chargers?
Right now, you're saying?
In the season, they will be one of the biggest stories in sports. It will be Jim Harbaugh. Everywhere Jim Harbaugh has been, he has gotten the quick turnaround. The first year with San Francisco, they went 13-3, went to the NFC Championship game. Yeah. If the Chargers don't go to the playoffs, that will be one of the biggest disappointments we've had. Every other head coach, give them time. It's going to take a while to get into it. Jim Harbaugh comes in. The expectation is not, hey, let's go from 5-12 to 9-8. We're building something. No, it's you're going to be a Super Bowl winner. You're going to push the Chiefs right now.
I see your argument because you're saying either way it goes, it's going to be the biggest story. Because if it's a huge success, that means they're beating the Chiefs and they're they're beating teams that they didn't last year. If they don't, then it's a grave failure on this coach that they hired, that he was supposed to come in and do this.
Maybe he's 60 years old. Maybe he doesn't have the touch anymore. Maybe he should go back to college. Should never left Michigan. All that stuff.
But
yes,
to
it's a
make
huge
that
story.
kind of statement, I think it stressed us all out for just a beat to say, because I'm still thinking of, we're living in an Aaron Rodgers Jets world. And to say that at times the Chargers, who fight, I think, for the spotlight a lot of the year, and frankly throughout the news cycle, that you're going to say that they are going to trump what's happening with the Jets, that's a big one. But
Rams have one of the best coaches, one of the best quarterbacks in the game. They've got a couple of the best receivers in the game. They're not as big of a story as the Chargers. There's no way. There's no way. We've talked substantially more about the Chargers.
We do this with the Chargers in the offseason. That's the thing, is I think every summer you could say the Chargers are the bigger story because they've had so much talent. But then in season, I think it's where they fall off the cliff. So I just kind of, to say they're going to be the biggest story in sports, Tom, this is why you're sitting in that chair.
What else? What else is burning you up here?
I mean, you know me. I'm classically
Aaron
trained.
Rodgers, Jets, the mini camp thing.
I
you weren't
have
on
a little
during that.
PTSD from that because I think as a show last August, there was, for everybody.
You're still wearing your Jets gear?
Still wearing my Jets gear. There was so much emotional buildup to that, and then the fallout from that. But I'm curious about what's happening in Minnesota, and just the emotional breakup at the quarterback position. Again, to bring it full circle with the Michigan quarterback situation and what that transition is going to be like. I'm in the middle of watching receiver, and you just fall in love with Justin Jefferson all over again. And I think for KOC and their ownership and management, these are officially, it's like a college basketball coach that comes in and it's like his first real recruiting class that comes up. I think for Kevin O'Connell, this is big time. These are your decisions, and you put stamps on these things. And plus, it's the NFC North is no longer, or has it ever really been, the teams just shifted, a walk in the park. So the Lions are just so fun. But my heart sometimes, pulls towards the North Star.
We were talking earlier. We took some calls on it, because the Texans being the first full squad on the field earlier today. Who could be this year's Texans, the team that nobody thought? And there's not that many because we already have convinced ourselves, well, the Bears are a playoff team now. Yeah. all these. Okay. And then one of the teams I think you could put on this category would be if the Vikings are a playoff team. If they're good, of the teams, from a hype train perspective, obviously the Lions, that's through the roof. It was actually bigger last year because now it's just they're one of the best. Yeah. The Packers were one of the hottest teams in the league last year, the second half of the season, into the playoffs, right down to the final interception in San Francisco. You have the Bears with all their additions and Caleb Williams. There's all kinds of excitement. No one's talked about the Vikings.
Yeah.
They've got a really good skill group. They got to figure out the quarterback position. But if they were to become an NFC contender this year, that, to me, would be an out of left field, people didn't see it coming type of moment.
It would be out of left field. I agree with you. But the parallel to the Texans last year, who just, from a star perspective, they didn't have it. We didn't see what C.J. Stroud was going to come up with. We didn't see what Will Anderson was going to do defensively. DeMeco Ryans is such a wonderfully warm and intelligent and bright, driven coach that really gets these guys to a place where they need to operate. To put the Vikings in that, I think the Vikings just have categorically more star power just because Justin Jefferson is there. So I agree it would be out of left field. Gosh, that is a great question because, we just... Now I'm really thinking about who it could be. I like the Vikings argument. What about the Broncos?
The Broncos, that would certainly be...
That would be surprising.
That would be a surprise.
That would be a
shock.
shock.
The way the Texans
I would
did it?
be pretty shocked.
Sean Payton finally got his quarterback, to your point about putting the stamp on things. He's got Bo Nix, who every scout and coach I talked to before the draft was like, this is the perfect fit, 52 career starts, coach's kid. He's going to listen to Sean, do exactly what he wants. Yep. I like that one. I like that possibility. They're in a transition now.
Tough division to
personnel
do that
perspective, and they're in the rockiest division that there is in football. Okay. Good Morning Football returns July 29th. Airs Monday through Friday, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern on NFL Network. Plus, new extension series GMFB Overtime premiering July 29th, streaming Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to noon on the Roku channel. Also syndicated, as you mentioned, on
Sounds
TV stations.
Sounds so good when you say it, Tom.
Jamie, you're the best. Awesome seeing you again. Thank you very much for coming. I will be watching, hopefully, on that show.
Yes, nice. Please
starting
come by.
July 29th. And
bring your guitar.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.